We're
We're
live!
live!
Hello!
Hello! Welcome to the Bard Book Club.
On to number 3.
This month was Henry IV, Part 1 by William Shakespeare.
Who was smart.
Yeah.
I want us to get that right off the bat.
And so this is the first of the histories that we've read. And
we should have posed with these real quick. Smile. Okay, great.
And it has so many characters that we had to use many hats during our read through.
Many. There's like almost 40 characters, I believe.
He really went, how many characters can I have on stage?
He really did. He went, I mean, Shakespeare always overpopulates things, but like.
Yeah. No, because I remember like when I was going to direct, one of the guys who was like giving me advice about directing, he was like, you want to choose one of the plays where there's like several like main characters and then like a bunch of side characters, because that way you can just cut out a bunch of people.
Well, because it'll be like Gentleman 1, Gentleman 2.
Yeah.
Like
so he was really rooting for Romeo and Juliet, which I did not do. But
you did the exact opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but he was rooting for that because like there's like Romeo and Juliet, and then there's like a few main characters, and then like you can kind of cut out a lot of the different people. So
let me tweet that we're live.
Yes. Hello, Austin.
Hi, Austin. I'm so professional right now, getting things done when they're supposed to. Hold on.
He said, "Fuck Romeo and Juliet." You know, it's not terrible, but like it's not great.
No, I'm not here for that. I love Romeo and Juliet.
I'm like in the middle. I feel like I need to read it again to be like.
I really like it. I really like it a lot. I think it's that whole narrative of like it's about teenagers.
I think the reason it gets a lot of hate is because it's so well known.
Yeah.
And like now it's been overdone, but that's because he did it first. So like.
Yeah, basically, like listen. Romeo and Juliet walked so that High School Musical could run.
It's true. We'll talk about that when we get to Romeo and Juliet, which is
that's just something to keep in mind, everybody.
Not even this year.
Yeah, that's a 2021 if we make it that far.
Yeah. So Henry IV, Part 1. That was a time.
It was long. That was like I think our read through of this was 3 hours because it.
Yeah, it's quite a long thing.
A lot happened. And then our movie that we watched was My Own Private Idaho, which was something.
That's one word for it. Yep.
That was a film. That was a film.
Yeah.
That's what I got to say.
As John Mulaney would call it, an on-fire garbage can.
Could be a nursery.
Yeah. So, what are our general thoughts on this play? Well,
you go first.
I really enjoyed the experience of reading through this play. I thought it was really fun. I had a bunch of hats that I got for this read-through, and I really thought that was a good time.
I liked the hat choices we did.
Me too. I thought it was a good time. And except there's so many characters that's kind of hard to keep track of. So like they were like the two storylines that like I was here for. But also like I wasn't as big of a fan. Like I couldn't read this on my own. Like we've kind of talked about this before our read through, but like I tried reading through it before.
Yeah, we didn't actually really read through it by ourselves.
But it's really rough.
Usually when we do the read-throughs, you and I have already read the plays.
Yeah, at least once, yeah.
Yeah, and
But this, I was just like,
we hadn't tried to play it all. By the time we had maybe skimmed it. Oh, yeah. That's right. I had tried to read it, and I got one scene in. We were on a Google Hangout, and I went, absolutely not. I cannot follow this. And so then you tried, and you couldn't follow it. And then we tried to skim through, and we couldn't follow it. So then I got on Spark Notes. I was like, what happened?
Yeah.
So that I knew. Because, I mean, we knew,
like, the general idea of what was happening. Yeah, like, fair enough. But I don't think I could have read that, like, on my own, like, which I feel like is kind of the issue with a lot of Shakespeare's works. For some people, is they're like, oh, like how are you supposed to even get into that?
Dramas are all incredibly easy to just read, like a book, like Caesar, Macbeth, what we're doing next month, which is Hamlet. I think those, I don't know why or how he wrote them, like, but they're I think easy.
They're easy to read. As well as a lot of the comedies, I feel like, I mean, like,
I think they're but they're not they just don't feel funny until you read them out loud. There's something about, like, you can't Also, I'm sure, like, at the time, because that was how people talked, they would have been able to find it funnier. But
yeah,
the history.
Also, like, they weren't just straight reading it; they were going to see it in production.
Yeah.
The same effect.
Histories we're learning are not easy to just sit down and crack open.
Like I have only read one history, so like before this, I had only read one. And it was Henry V, and I read it for school. I read it for my Shakespeare class, and I really enjoyed it. But that's because like every week after we read like a section of the scenes, we would talk about it and like really talk it through. But even that, like we went through it like way quicker because my teacher's just like, yeah, I felt like I needed to include a history, but like that's not the one she wanted to focus on, obviously.
Yeah, like I've read the historic dramas, like Antony and Cleopatra and Caesar's my favorite, obviously, but that's still like because it's such a fictionalized take on what happened.
Like, he doesn't even call it a history, yeah.
It's like Shakespeare, the CW experience. Like he's like, I got it.
Yeah. I mean, even with like Henry V, I think it was originally no. I think I'm mixing them up. I was thinking about King Lear.
English people were only allowed to name their kids one of 7 names.
Yeah. They have just like the same like.
They were Elizabeth.
5 names.
Mary, Henry, and Catherine. No other boy names. Everyone had to be Henry or John. Someone could be John, but that was it.
Yeah, he really had a limited selection of names there.
That's why, like, a lot of times they would start going by like Harry or whatever. Like,
yeah. Yeah, no, but like it's interesting they were talking about the distinction between the histories and the dramas because I think I probably mentioned this in a different live show, but like King Lear was originally supposed to be a history, and then
of who?
I don't know.
That well-known King Lear that we all learned about.
Yeah, I mean, he was like a fictional like king that was in the Book of King.
I just want to say right now too, if I seem a little like it's because this is alcohol in it, and I started drinking before we went live. And I'm a lightweight because I never drink. So even though there's only 1 shot of vodka in this, I'm still like feeling it because I'm boring and I don't have fun anymore. And so what I do really hits me. But I thought this was appropriate since you pretended to be drinking the entire reading. That was my favorite. That the Falstaff hat was the cowboy hat, and that your go-to was no matter where they were. Like, they could be in the middle of a field, and you just had a drink, and we're like, yes!
Yeah.
I wasn't supposed to read Henry IV, Mar was, and then her internet wasn't working. And so I had to, first of all, that would have been amazing if Mar ended up doing it because she lives in Mexico. And so I'm pretty sure, even though she's fluent in English, I don't think it's her first language. But like all her social media is in English, which always impresses me because we're Americans. The fuck if we can do that? Because she was in Coraline and obviously.
Oh, from Geoffrey and Monmouth.
Oh yeah. Oh,
yeah, okay. Lear was in that. So then they were like, it's a history. But then like everyone thought the ending was like super tragic. So then he changed it.
I like getting to read Henry IV. I also I liked the play. I do think it's amazing how they're all always funny. You just don't always do it and you don't say it out loud.
There's always at least like a few funny parts where you're like, I see.
I liked getting to play Henry IV. I didn't originally sign up, like I said, Mar did, and then I stepped in and did it, and I thought it was really fun, and I liked a lot of the monologues he got to get. I definitely want to play him when we do the second part. I thought it was
my fault.
I thought it was too many threads. Like it was a little too many.
Yeah.
I get that there was the 2 main ones, but there was
like just like a bunch happening, and a
lot of random shit. Like when I was reading for the hostess and you were Falstaff, and there's the whole argument about like robbery, like that didn't fucking service the plot, and it's already so long. And this is because there was no editors; he just got to write shit, and they were like, "All right, let's put it on."
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, I haven't read any other histories, but out of there's 37 plays. I've read maybe like half of them. So out of the half I've read, I wouldn't put this as like a tip-top fave, but I would definitely put it above something like Measure for Measure, which is like probably the worst one I've ever read. But I can't gauge if it's like a favorite or not yet. I didn't love that it was too hard to just read as a book because I love reading the dramas and rereading the dramas. What was the other thing I was going to say? Obviously, there's no women in it, but that was kind of par for the course, which I don't really follow because of the situation of like, you couldn't have women on the stage, and you can only expect men to dress in like not very impressive drag for so long. And I will say, even though Shakespeare almost never has women, when he does, like they don't come to fuck around. Yeah, like the host was not there to fuck around. And very excited for next month because like
I mean that's like I had a class next month. I had a class on Virginia Woolf, and it was in like one of her books. I want to say either A Room of One's Own or Three Guineas. She talks about how if you just base your perceptions of women off of the written women, then like if you read Shakespeare and stuff, like you're like, wow, they're really powerful. But then you come to the real world and they have no rights.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, Shakespeare was so clearly a feminist. I mean, obviously didn't have that word yet, but like he didn't agree with that women couldn't act or anything. Which like, I'm not trying to like jump into next month. I just want to say this real quick because we're like 2 days out from Pride Month starting, and this year is obviously a powder keg for issues with Pride. Obviously, we don't get to have any Pride festivals or parades. George Floyd, who was just recently murdered, was queer, and already people are trying to erase him. There's all kinds of things we've discussed going on book Twitter and stuff with people who aren't queer trying to host queer readathons and who are titling them not good things. And we're reading Hamlet, which is a bisexual play. It was, I mean, obviously they didn't have that word at the time, but Shakespeare was openly queer. There are documented letters of him writing to male lovers. You see homoerotic stuff in all of his plays. Like there was so much. Like, I mean, even this, like, Falstaff, like, there's a reason when we watched My Own Private Idaho, which I know we'll get to, it was, like, they didn't just, like, pull that out of the air to, like, make it gay. Yeah. So one thing I do appreciate, too, is, like, even though he populates the stories with mostly men because, I mean, the time period and the rules of how theater worked, is the men have most of them have, and most of the protagonist men have, like, this fluid energy. Like, it's not just, like, they're not all just, like, toxic masculinity. Like, a lot
and, like, I think that's proven by, like, when we do the read-throughs, like, we all play everyone, and it doesn't really matter.
A lot of the male protagonists have, you know, say for like the ones that are written to be like the epitome of like masculine energy, like Caesar or Macbeth or something, is like the rest of like Hamlet, who we're gonna do, and like Henry, Percy in this, like had very feminine energy at sometimes. And so that's the thing is, I don't know, I told you, like I was talking to someone the other day who was straight, and they were like, I was explaining how like Hamlet is such an amazing like bisexual piece of fiction, and they were like, yeah, I mean, like, I just like to see it as like he wrote great stories. Like, I don't like to speculate over whether or not he was queer. And it's like, one, it's not speculation, it's just fucking fact. Like, if we're gonna act like that's speculation, then we're just gonna speculate over whether people were straight. It's the assumption that they're straight. Like, it was documented and known at the time. And I was like, I said to them, I said, first of all, like, one, that just shows your privilege that you could open up any story and it was by straight people about straight people. Like, second of all, we talk about all the time Shakespeare was smart. And so,
wow, what a concept.
Hot take. But the way that, like, yeah, he, even though he couldn't get a lot of women in the stories, the ones who are there, like, they're not just wallflowers, and they're not just like the stereotypical, like, I have a sword, so I'm a strong woman. Like, they're all different dynamic characters. Even the ones who only get to come on for like a page, like they make an impression. But also that he was putting like gender fluid stuff into the stories is obviously just queer erasure of the history of an important person to not acknowledge who he was in real life. But it also, I think, waters down how smart, like brilliant these were. Because that's another thing is like the plays that like Claudius and Brutus are like, what the fuck is that energy? Like Caesar. And so, yeah, this one, 12th Night, everybody is that whole thing. That play was for the bisexuals. What's crazy in 12th Night, too, was then when everyone realized they were like maybe into someone of the other gender, they were like, well, all right. It's not how I thought this was going to come. But yeah, so that's my thoughts. As I liked it, it wasn't my favorite. It was one of my favorites that we read out loud.
Yeah, I agree. It was one of my favorites that we read out loud, but like not a favorite, like just.
I mean, that also has to do with it was our third time reading something out loud, so we were like getting the gist. But it was like story wise, it wasn't my favorite because there's not much of a story. It's just
it's harder to understand. So it's like one of the plays where people could be like, I can't read Shakespeare. Like,
I feel like we were watching a season of like a TV show, like Shakespeare the sitcom, because just every scene was some isolated like mischief.
Yeah.
We're gonna do this, and it's like, what does that have to do with what was going? And then it would cut back to be like, we're at war, and it's like, oh, that's right, there was a dire tone under this, and it felt like the tonal shift was weird. How it kept going from like this is very serious and betrayal and war to like let's get drunk and rob some people. Like.
Yeah, there was like a weird dichotomy there.
I gave it like a B. It was like I enjoyed it. It just wasn't like my tip top fave.
Yeah, I gave it 3 stars out of 5.
I liked it better than 12th Night, honestly.
I liked my reading experience better, but I don't know if I would think of the play as better than 12th Night.
I see them maybe both. Like 12th Night's like just writing wise a more succinct story.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's just I've never personally cared about the trope that 12th Night does of the whole like, I'm the other gender now. Yeah. For me personally, I like watching people be ridiculous and like argue about war and stuff. But yeah, also just reading it, that was one of the most fun nights we had reading. Yeah. So yeah, those are my thoughts. What do you have on here?
Characters, because there's 40 of them, so you know.
I mean, I don't even know. They're so fucking. There were some we didn't even think to write down in the cast list, and
then they'd appear, and we'd be like, oh.
My favorite is still there's a clip of it on the Instagram where I'm switching hats, and then finally I go, "Who's Northumberland?" You go, "You," and I'm like, "Oh shit!" I switched hats again. And I remember we had the best comments because Katie, my sister, was watching, and Austin was commenting, and it was great.
Yeah, the characters were interesting. There were like a select few that like stood out to me where I was like, there's a character.
I mean, Falstaff.
Because there's so many of them like blended together.
Yeah.
So like I really liked playing Falstaff because I thought that was really fun.
Falstaff was hilarious.
And I can understand why people enjoyed him because I know he's like one of the most beloved Shakespeare characters.
He was funny, and how you did it was funny.
Yeah, so I could like understand why like people were like, Falstaff. So like I got it in the sense. But then like
on her Instagram, I am paying attention.
Yeah,
I don't want that to seem like I don't give a shit.
But then I like some of the other characters would just like drift away, and I'd be like, I don't really, care about them.
I liked playing Henry IV. Usually, the like main royal character can be kind of boring. I mean, at least some people think that. I'm like that boring person who's like, hell yeah, Caesar and Henry IV. I like reading monarchs. I like studying monarchs. So I thought, he was a fun one to read because he wasn't also just like a bumbling idiot like a lot of the like royal characters always are.
Yeah, he knew kind of like what was up.
And I don't know anything about Henry IV because I'm one of those people who doesn't start caring about the history of English monarchy until the Wars of the Roses, which is pretty typical with, you know, white Americans, is we're like, hey, the thing that inspired Game of Thrones, what came before it? Who the fuck cares? And so
there's some things back there.
It was interesting. Well, and I do like about his stuff because I know at the time people wondered what his politics were because like Richard III and it was like, or Richard II, one of the Richards came first, and
Richard II, I believe.
Yeah, like on the show,
we meant to read first, but then
fucked it up. Whatever. The show Will, it was just called Will. It had Jamie Campbell Bower in it, I believe, that guy from the Shadowhunters movie. Is that his name?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I only watched one episode of that show because it was just like too CW energy for me. But what was great is like from like 10 minutes into that episode, they were like, he was into men too. Like they really put that in your face. But it starts with him writing that, and like at first the people who like he wanted to put it on were like, this is like you're making fun of the government. But then he did it anyway, and it got to the point where like people had no idea if he was just writing the jokes to be funny or if he really believed those radical jokes. And like, I mean, Queen Elizabeth I fucking hate her, horrible person, but she was really into the theater, and like it was basically him that like made it become a thing for like rich people to take theater seriously.
Yeah,
is good and bad because look at it now. But
yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because like
$5,000.
We talked about that in like my Shakespeare class as well. How like he was writing like a lot of like things that were like political, and people didn't know if he was actually referencing like the reigning monarchs or if
he was just trying to be funny.
He was just like going for it because like, there are so many parallels that he can show.
Yeah, like that was a hot topic when it came out because people had no clue if he was just writing that or if it was like the way Animal Farm was about the Soviet regime. Like people weren't sure. They were like, is this a story or is he trying to say something? I mean, obviously he was probably trying to say something because listen, he was smart. No, I think he was probably trying to say stuff, but because he was like lower class and people didn't respect theater, he got away with people being like, oh no, it's just jokes. But I think he meant it.
I think he was trying to say something.
What was interesting about this, though, is I couldn't tell what side Shakespeare himself was on.
Yeah. I think that's always what's interesting about Shakespeare because, like, you don't know what he's going for because, like, I kind of talked about this before as well, but like when we read Henry V, we talked about the
in your Shakespeare class.
Yeah.
Okay, because I have people being like, when did y'all read Henry V? We haven't done that yet.
Yeah. But we talked about the duck rabbit imagery. There's like this picture of a duck and a rabbit that you can find online. And it's like an optical illusion. So like if you look at it one way, you can see it one way, and if you look at it the other way. And we kind of talked about how Henry V is like that, which I'll talk about more like when we get there. But like it's that you can see him one way when you're seeing what he's saying, and that he is like this really great ruler and he's like doing all this great stuff. And then there's like a scene where like you see these random soldiers and they're like, hey, he sucks, like why are we fighting? And then he's just there and he's like, yo guys, like he's not bad, like you should fight for him. And like there's the the duality of like, is he a good ruler or is he just like kind of trying to figure stuff out?
As Pages Burns says, some people these days complain about there being too many characters in a certain book they haven't read, and it's like they haven't read a Shakespeare play apparently.
Facts, because there's really so many characters and you just gotta keep track of them.
And it's probably my least favorite thing about Shakespeare, because like I personally like intimate stories with like less than a dozen focused characters, and like
no, I really like getting to know like a certain set of characters, because then you're like,
thankfully, like I mean, some of them have like small groups that you focus on, like I mean, it's kind of a cast, but like smaller.
Yeah. There's like the groups that you like get to know, and
like the next we're doing Hamlet, and like when we get to Macbeth, like the famous ones have their groups and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like even like as a person who directed Taming of the Shrew, I will have a lot of thoughts on that play when we get there. But like,
I'm just gonna sit back and be like, "Here's your podium, go for it."
Yeah, but like when we get there, I'll talk about it more. But like, there's like 3 sets of groups, and even though like all of the stories intertwine like a whole lot, there's like the distinctions that you can like find within the different characters. So it's like interesting to kind of like figure that out when you're reading.
I think it's a common thing I've noticed in Shakespeare to have like the 2 storylines that then meet in the middle. Like Knight and this very much had it.
Yeah, it's like I learned in my screenwriting class, we talked about television scripts for a bit, because like talking about TV versus movies and stuff. But he talked about how there's like an A plot, B plot, and C plot in sitcoms, and how like they always generally kind of like meet in the middle sometimes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. I feel like that's kind of what Shakespeare is going for.
Shakespeare, you know what, invented the sitcom.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, but I'm not, because this book felt like a sitcom at times. Like
because it was just like going between the different plots.
You know what? Like the sitcom episode that this really made me think of, or no, 12th Night made me think of this rather. Have you seen Friends? Are you familiar? Yeah. It's an underground show.
No one really knows about it, but yeah.
It's the highest rated episode they ever did. It's the one where everyone finds out.
I love that episode. Yeah. Yep.
They don't know that we know.
No, we know.
That wasn't 12 Night. I don't know what's
true. Facts.
And this gave me like Friends vibes a lot. Like the one where it's like the part where Falstaff's like, look at this is a crazy looking Cheeto. But the one it's the trident of Percy Jackson. But when he was like, I fought 5 men, and then he's like, I fought 20 men. I feel like it was 5 a minute ago. Like,
yeah, that's my favorite scene of the whole thing, which we can talk about later. But like that's my favorite part, because like it's just the funniest part where you're like, wow, he's really out here.
Good part of the movie.
Yeah, you know, there were 3 men, and then I fought them off, and like I fought off all 5 of them.
Percy's like 12. It was 4, but a moment ago. Like,
he's like, wait, like you just said there were 4 guys, and he's like, no, did I say 4? I meant 13.
It's hilarious. I fucking love that scene.
Yeah, it's because it's like you all know of like a situation where that kind of happens, where people exaggerate, but it's so funny to see it happen in real time when he's like, and then the 30 men that were out there, wow,
everyone's just egging him on. They're like, so it's the darkest minds Cheeto. That's I'm sorry, I just saw it. That's really it was. I ate it, so it's over. But you have themes, or no, you have plot then themes. We already kind of talked about the plot. You want to talk about the themes?
Yeah, the plot kind of wasn't there.
The plot is that there isn't one.
Yeah, the plot is just there's a war.
I think part 2 is probably going to have like more of a plot.
Yeah, I mean, I think because like all of the histories are connected, like
I love that Shakespeare making his own shared universe, because again, this is back when theater was accessible. Because now when they make like sequels to stage shows, you're like, how would anyone see that unless they?
Yeah.
Mamma Mia is hilarious that they made a stage show and then a movie and then a sequel just to the movie.
Yeah.
Because
again, and that's like when you got to go see part 1 and 2 of The Cursed Child.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work. That's like if like how that musical Love Never Dies exists. Like
gross.
Yeah, but I'm like, you're also just banking that
people know Phantom of the Opera, yeah.
But
yeah, I think the plot it's fine. It's just interesting that he connected all of them, and I think that's a cool idea.
I think it's cool because you can't do it now because theater's not accessible.
Yeah, which is why I think that's really transformed. Transferred over to movies with like.
Austin said no, and I agree, big no to Love Never Dies.
Yeah, gross.
It does die, and it died when they tried to write that show.
Yeah, it's true. So the themes.
There aren't a lot, I don't think.
Yeah.
It felt like a pretty surface level play.
It really did. It felt surface level, but also like in like the worst possible way.
Yeah, like again, so much fun reading it, but narrative, yeah.
Yeah, like I guess you have the theme of youth with Henry, with the young Prince Henry, because
I didn't even catch on to that.
I mean, I only know this because I have read Henry V, which is about him specifically. And I remember her being like, well, everyone who's seen these plays, they remember back in Henry IV when he's like this young child running around being drunk with his friends. And then now, like everyone, like in Henry V, everyone questions him and they're like, why do you have any right to rule? Like, you're just like a misfit.
I guess it's that theme of like the power at the end of the day does actually lie with the people because all it takes is the people deciding, no, you don't get to be the king anymore.
Yeah, but like, I mean, in this context, I just mean like youth because like we're seeing him in his youth, but then he's going to grow out of that because he does then become like a really good leader in the end. Or at least some people think so. But like he kind of changes tone when he gets there because now he's supposed to lead his whole country. So like you're seeing him when he's carefree and then he's going to have all this responsibility.
Yeah, this felt like a lot of setup.
Yeah.
Not bad, just like you would never do that nowadays. You'd never be like, here's a 3-hour play to set up the main story.
I mean, yeah, happens sometimes. Fun dialogue. My favorite.
Everything Falstaff said.
Yeah.
All of it.
And just like, I mean, I said that one part is my favorite when he's talking. I also just like the banter between him and the hostess. Thought that was fun.
That was really funny to read. You owe me money, sir. Like, because I was running out of voices that I was able to do.
Yeah.
It's
good time.
I highlighted some stuff because I'm a professional. Hold on.
Go for it. I didn't because it was on my computer.
I mean, obviously, like, yeah, a lot of that whole scene. I mean, every scene with Falstaff.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Falstaff. And then, like, were there other things? That's a good question.
Like, this part is just so funny. It's in scene. Hold on, what fucking scene is this? It's Act 3, Scene 3. Where it's like the hostess and Falstaff and Prince Henry is like, say, what beast thou knave thou? What beast? Why, an otter. An otter, Sir John? Why an otter? Why? She's neither fish nor flesh. A man knows not where to have her. Like, and there's just so many lines like that. There was like, thou art an unjust man in saying so. Thou or any man knows where to have me.
Yeah.
It was funny.
It's a good time. Especially like reading them aloud with us going back and forth. Like,
because it would go from really serious Henry IV scenes to then everyone just like dicking around.
Which I think is why like the whole audience who like back then watched it really liked Falstaff and his friends because they were obviously the lighter part. Generally, people like the lighter.
That's what I preferred. Like,
yeah. Which, me too. I'm like out here like the comedy part. That's what I want.
It was funny.
But also, I don't think they could have pulled off like a whole play of just that. Cause, like,
I just think that I like the Henry IV parts too. It's just they felt a little too drawn out.
Yeah, and they were like a bit dry, which like fair enough because he's in a war and stuff. But like,
I felt like the whole play was drawn out. Like,
yeah,
some cuts.
It didn't need to be, especially since it's part 1.
Yeah,
we were part 2 with all of this.
It could have just been 1. Cut it down.
Yeah, if you're gonna do 2 parts, I don't think the first part needs to be 3 hours long.
Yeah, seriously. I remember during our read through, I was like, wow, we are still going. I was like,
I remember, yeah, it got to be like midnight, and I was like, here we are.
I was like, this play is still happening.
It's like, you people who are still watching, thank you. I appreciate you.
Okay, can we talk about My Own Private Idaho? So, guys,
if you haven't seen My Own Private Idaho, I don't recommend you watch it.
You're like, why is that what you picked? Okay, I had picked most of our adaptations because I just Googled them for the ones that I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head. Yeah, shockingly, there's not a plethora of Henry IV adaptations.
Wow, never would have guessed.
Remember
Henry IV.
What is this one? It's an adaptation of Fourth, Part 1 and 2 and 5.
No, I think it's just part 1 and 2.
Okay, so like, I almost never saw anything resulting it being like Henry IV.
There was only that one scene where he
with Bob or Bill or whatever his name was.
Bob, I think.
And he was Falstaff.
Yeah, where that was when we were like, is that Falstaff?
Yeah, the whole movie we're like, is this character this? Is this character this?
Like, I don't know who this character is supposed to be. But then there's that one scene where they get drunk and then they put on those pink onesies.
Cinematic gold.
And then they go and beat up the other guys. And then he's like, I beat up 2 people. And then they're like, wow, really good job. And he's like, yeah, all 5 of them ran away.
Oh, yeah. Keanu Reeves is just like egging him on. It's like, oh, it was but 4 a moment ago. And like that, what was weird though about the movie is that sometimes they would take clearly the direct Shakespearean dialogue.
Yeah.
Sometimes they wouldn't. I also
rare times.
You want to talk about there was no fucking plot.
The best 2 parts of that movie was that scene where they like go beat up the guys and then the guy dancing.
Oh, I liked the funeral and they were all just like, bah, bah.
Oh yeah,
bah,
the like both of the back and forth funerals. Yeah, that was good.
Oh yeah, but the German guy dancing was great.
Yeah, that was a good time.
But again, like, you know, they made that movie explicitly gay. So like, remember my sister she was watching with us and she goes, yeah, the people of Idaho and the gays had a big breakthrough because of this.
Yeah.
Small time spent in Idaho, let me tell you.
Considering it's called My Own Private Idaho, yeah. They made a lot of decisions in that movie, and I don't think they were the right one.
That movie did really badly when it came out, which is not surprising.
Yeah. I could see why, because it's just...
No, there's just not as much to discuss this month because it's just such a surface level play. Like, it's not bad. Yeah. It's just like, there's not a lot of like deeper themes going on. We could
talk about My Own Private Idaho a little bit more. There were some
I know what you're talking about. Is it the freeze frame sex scenes?
What even was that?
There were, for everyone who's at home who's not understanding what we're saying, there were these parts where to show people are having sex, it would just cut to different posed moments that weren't like, it was clear the actors were just being told to be still, and so it would just be like, and then it would cut to them being like, and then it would cut again, and like, but it stayed on them too long. It wasn't like really quick. It was just like, so it would just be like Keanu Reeves like naked ass while he's like on top of a girl, and you'd be like that, and then it would cut.
So then like a different position. You're like,
and I didn't get to see any men make out, which was honestly bullshit because like. It was explicitly gay, but they wouldn't show them do anything. They made
a lot of decisions there. Also, I feel like the plot
is when
you know what? Actually, the plot it was just as terrible as the book. Because like you're kind of like, what's happening here? And I'm like that. I mean, that's how I felt during the play too.
Let me tell you, this is what I think the plot of My Own Private Idaho was. This is what I think.
Okay.
So, River Phoenix. I don't remember his characters. I don't remember any of their names. River Phoenix and Keanu Reeves. They're male prostitutes, sex workers, and they're squatters in this building. And like Keanu Reeves, they keep saying that he was going to get his trust when he was 21. And I was like, I'm supposed to buy that guy isn't even 21 yet. Like
that's like when they hire like really old actors to play like 15-year-olds in the
like late 20s
adaptations.
And they're like, when he turns 21, I'm like, how the fuck old am I supposed to buy you are that you're not even 21?
I mean, that's just like all of the like 20-something-year-olds playing teenagers.
Yeah, they were like, he was supposed to, like, once he got his trust, like, help everybody out. Like, they were kind of like a family. And it was like...
He's rich, which is why I think he's hairy.
Yeah. And so, River Phoenix's character...
had narcolepsy.
And then there wasn't really any kind of fucking inciting incident. Decides he needs to go find his mom, who abandoned him as a child.
And he has narcolepsy.
He also, stress-induced narcolepsy. And, like, if you're wondering if that really has anything to do with anything or plays a point in the plot, it doesn't. He's just randomly asleep sometimes.
And they're like, asleep again.
And they're like, oh, shit. And then, so Keanu Reeves is like, yeah, you're my best friend. And he's like, you're my best friend, dude. And so they are like, we'll road trip it from, where were they? Seattle?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like somewhere worth being. Sorry to everyone in Idaho. And so I guess like River Phoenix's character was from Idaho, and so they're taking a road trip on a bike they stole, to get to Idaho. His mom's not there. His like birth.
But then she's like in England or like.
No, Italy, and so then they go to Italy.
Yeah.
And go to the house she's supposed to be in.
She's not there.
But there's like this hot girl there. It's not really clear why they're allowed to keep staying at the places they end up. They just are. And and then
they're like okay looking.
So then they're like, oh yeah, she's actually went back to America. And they're like, oh fuck. And then Keanu Reeves falls in love with that hot Italian girl after like 2 days. And so then he's like, okay.
You like that sometimes.
He's like, okay, narcoleptic friend, I'm out. And then he gives him a ton of money. And you're like, did you have this the whole time?
Because there's like a bunch of scenes where he's like, we have no money. And he's like, I know, right?
Side of the road. And he just hands him like a wad of cash and then dips out of there.
He's like, bye.
And then we cut back and he's rich and he's like forsaken them and broke his promise to help them out. And then they see him go into a nice restaurant and Falstaff, Bill, Bob, whatever his name is, goes in and it's like, hey, it's me. And he's like, what I love then is when he goes, I don't even know you. And he's like, and if I did know you, and then he just talks, it's like everyone watching is clearly like, you do know who that guy is.
It's like, seems like you got some history.
And so then he dies, and then Keanu Reeves' dad dies, and they decide to have Bob's funeral a few yards away from the family.
Like 20 yards away.
And so then you're going back and forth from this boring funeral, because God forbid funerals be boring, to like this.
Is really.
And then that's it. That's the end.
Like running around shouting.
What was the point? I don't know. I will say though, like I
don't know.
One of my favorites is when we were watching it, and there's this scene where they're on the side of the road because clearly they don't have money. They have a fire going, and River Phoenix's character is like, I love you. I'm in love with you. And his friend's like, I don't love people. And then he's like crying. And I was like, what? I was like, they're not going to make out. Like, just say something back. And then my sister goes, yeah, he is way out of your league. Keanu Reeves, like, take the chance. And then when I Googled the plot to make sure we were following it correctly.
Yeah, no. But he said that he didn't love anyone.
Yeah, and then the plot was like.
No, then he went and fell in love with that Italian lady. So.
Well, the way I love how the plot was like, you could tell this, because this came out when? In the late 80s, early 90s? This came out back when like people still really, really hated
1991.
Yeah, so people were still not okay with acknowledging bisexuality existed. So like when I looked up the plot synopsis, it was like Keanu Reeves' character prefers to identify more as straight. And I'm like, you fucked a lot of men. I'm like, you can be a sex worker.
I guess they could just be like
you could be a male sex worker who has sex with women. That is a thing. Also, there in the like first 10 minutes, we watched like River Phoenix's character like do be an escort to like 5 different people, to the point where he's just walking down the street in the morning in Seattle dressed normally and like jeans and a sweater, and some old guy's like, hey, you want to go? And I'm like, is this what Seattle is? Like, I've never been. I didn't know. Thought it was just they just look at people, and there was all those random scenes in the diner for no purpose. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, there were a lot of scenes in the diner, and I just didn't know what was happening there.
Is this supposed to be something? I don't.
There was a time when that girl was crying, and I was like, "Why is she crying?"
And then we never know.
And then there was like another time when they were just like making out, and I was like,
"Everybody live your life." There was that time where like the cops came to raid the house they were squatting in, but they were just looking for Bob. They didn't care that all these sex workers were illegally squatting in this house. Yeah, and to like distract them, Keanu Reeves and River Phoenix like pretend they're in the middle of fucking. Also, listen, I feel like that maybe proved that Keanu Reeves' character was straight, because they're in like what would be missionary position two cisgender men can't have sex that way. And so when they like pulled back the blanket and they were like, okay, guys, I don't know who you're fooling. It was, and then like the cops were like laughing. They're like, hey, your dad's looking for you. And I'm like, what is the dynamic here between these people?
I don't know.
I don't even understand what his dad did.
He's just like a rich guy. It's the only vibe I got.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, that movie was a hot mess, just like the play.
That was not the best one, I will say.
No.
But
probably the worst.
June movie night's gonna redeem it. Should we talk about June now?
Yeah.
So June, I already said it, but I'll say it again. We're reading Hamlet. It's Pride Month. This is about bisexuals. You can't convince us otherwise. We're gonna be watching on. Hold on, I wrote down the dates. 1 second, I'm a professional. Okay. So on the 12th will be our read through. And we still have lots of openings. So if you go to our Twitter, the cast sign up is there. And it'll be at 9 p.m. EST on this channel. And then on the 19th is movie night, and it's a double feature. We're going to be watching Ophelia, the movie that came out with, what is her name, Daisy Ridley from Star Wars, and The Lion King.
Woo! No. I told my mom that The Lion King was Hamlet, and she was like, it is. And I was just like,
what rock does she live under?
I don't know. I had to explain it to her, and she was like, I guess. And I was like,
I mean, it's not verbatim. It's not like Simba tells Nala to go to a nunnery or anything, but like,
yeah, but like, there's so many parts where it's the same.
I mean,
I like got out like the thing, and I was like, so their fathers both were killed by the uncles.
Run away,
and they're exiled. Yeah.
And then I mean, like, no, granted, Hamlet's dad's ghost is like, go kill your uncle, whereas like Simba's like, remember who you are, don't leave me. So and so movie night is on the 19th at 8 p.m. EST. And we'll be tweeting along on Twitter. That's how we do it. Also, though, we had someone join our Google Hangout to watch it. So some people want to join the Google Hangout to watch. I mean, it's a little bit of a bitch to try and make sure our screens are synced, but, you know.
A little bit of struggle.
It worked. We got it, though.
Yeah.
And then our live show discussion will be on the 26th. At 8 p.m. So basically everything's at 8 except the read through, which we do at 9 because there's so many different time differences. We want to give everybody like somewhat of a chance to get there.
Yes.
I'm writing this down so I don't forget.
So thanks for talking about Henry the Fourth, Part 1.
We'll be back and we'll be doing Part 2 in several months.
Yeah, but this year. So
yeah, we're doing it in like August.
Something like that, yeah.
Because we go tragedy, comedy.
We're trying to like balance out the tragedies, and histories.
Comedy history, and so we have tragedy of Hamlet, and then the comedy we're doing after that, and then I think it's Henry the Fourth Part 2.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
August, yeah.
Thanks for being Shakespearean with us.
Thanks for coming to talk about Shakespeare with us, and we will see you guys next month. Talk about more Shakespeare.
You know what? I've had stuck in my head all day, and I almost wore my shirt from the show. It was like something wrong. Where he's like, "It's hot, it's hot, it's really, really hard. It's hard to be the boss." And then, of course, there's that last. God, I hate Shakespeare.
I love that too.
All right, bye.
Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you next month. Bye.
Bye.